Hello everybody and welcome back to KXP, where we play Kerbal Space Program in third person. So this week in the Janus Project we are going to have another joint effort mission that involves both the POV and our agency KXP. And but rather than a competition, this one is going to be a joint effort in the name of science, exploration, and preparation, because we have some big plans when we go interplanetary shortly. And the POV crowd has decided that the location they're going to attempt to conquer next is Eve and its moon. And in doing so, it's going to want to have some sort of submersible, some sort of boat, some sort of option to deal with the oceans of Eve, because I think that would be kind of fun. And so I've been working on a prototype vessel for that mission, and I decided, well, what better way to house the Kerbals on a distant planet, and especially scientists, if we're going to have a lot of science involved in this, than an underwater sealab, a base that can take in and process science and transmit it back to the home world. And so I spent a lot of time there developing a submarine, trying to understand that whole mechanics, which was fairly interesting. But we'll be getting into that in Monday's POV episode. But today we are actually going to be designing the underwater sea lab that the POV will be utilizing. Maybe not necessarily on Eve, because I believe we may have access to greater technology by that point. But this is a great place to learn how to utilize these technologies and build something that could potentially work on another planet. Eve's water and atmosphere is different than it is on Kerbin, so it will be a challenge to use the same craft twice, but we'll have to see once we get there. But the first thing we want to do is test it in Kerbin's ocean, test our submarine capabilities, test our ScanSat capabilities, because we're going to need to utilize some navigation if we are trying to find an underwater sea lab in a distant ocean. So they have contracted us to build them this sea lab. We're not going to be using this in our mission. This is not going to the planet. I have yet to decide exactly where we're gonna go. I have some thoughts, but I want to make sure that I am up to the challenge for it, especially before announcing. But we are happy to build this for them, and I thought it'd be a fun kind of episode to show the building process. I know I'm kind of talking through all the stuff that we're doing, but it will become clear soon enough what the mission is. So to kind of get back to this, to summarize what we've seen so far, we have some habitation up top with a mobile processing lab, a larger version from one of the mods. Down below, a jumbo can with the capabilities of holding 10 Kerbals in case we want to host some tourists or whatever there. Then followed down below that are life support options, both supplies as well as the ability of turning waste products into life support supplies. And then we have empty fuel tanks, which will hold the liquid fuel and oxygen that the drill-o-matics will turn. The convertitrons will turn the ore that the drill-o-matics drill up from the bottom of the ocean. And it's with these liquid fuel and oxygen that we are going to power our craft, because we are going to be, well, even on Kerbin, way too deep in order for solar panels to function. So we are instead going to use fuel cells to convert the liquid fuel oxygen that we get from the surface. And also by having ore in those tanks, it will help keep us anchored to the bottom, because this thing likes to float. It actually takes quite a lot to get something to stay submerged in Kerbal Space Program. So I am using a variety of mods. We are using Moist and Sunk Works Excuse me. And I believe there's something else. No, that must be it. But those are the fuel cells that I mentioned. I just stacked them up there. Oh yeah, there was a water fuel cell. I have yet to use it on this craft, but that was the other mod that I was thinking of, is liquid fuel cells, basically, which will help. But more for, actually, they might have been really helpful here. I didn't think about that. In the future we'll do that. But anyways, here we are. I am using both Moist and Sunken Works have the ability of turning fuel tanks into ballast tanks, and those ballasts will help us raise and lower in the water and give ourselves control. Really, all this needs to do is to be able to sink down to the bottom and stay there. So all we need to do is fill up those tanks with water that we gather from the ocean that we land in, and that will give us enough weight to stay submerged. As we see here, I'm having a little difficulty with getting the liquid to settle there. I'm using the part from Sunk Works, which eventually is the correct part, but we'll be going through several iterations to do this. I decided I wanted to keep some of the footage of me struggling. Yeah, see, there we go. I wanted to keep some of the footage of my struggles and my experiments, because this was quite a challenge, more so with the submarines. With that footage on Monday, I'll show you. I did a lot of testing. But this design has a fatal flaw, and that is it becomes too heavy as it travels down to the bottom. It picks up so much speed that it just breaks upon impact. So we are going to need some way of slowing this down. My first thought is just throw on some SRBs to cushion our fall when we get close enough. I also take this time to kind of change around my intake mode. I put some stuff on action groups, and I'm going to be changing that back and forth. The design we ended up landing on uses the Sunk Works intake valve, but we will change that around, like I mentioned. But just want to point out now that that is what eventually works, and I think this one worked well enough that we will probably apply some of that in the next episode. But both this and the Moist mod were kind of crucial in these episodes, in this mission, so I want to take a second to point that out. So right there I have some larger SRBs, but still with a thrust weight of less than 1, they are less than stellar, so we are going to change those out eventually as well. But for now, we are throwing on a whole bunch more lights, because at the bottom of Kerbin's Ocean is very dark, and I would assume at the bottom of Eve's it is as well. So more lights, the better. Now comes the era of me trying to figure out how to slow this down well enough so I don't hit the bottom. I realize I don't need a large holding space for the liquid to bring me down to the surface. So we have this tiny little tank here that we can flood the ballast of. I'll close the vents there. So it just needs a little bit of water to bring us down. As we vent the ballast, that brings us right back up, and as you see, we're kind of losing our momentum. So that is how we are going to control our descent. The next thing we need to do is figure out how to get that on action groups, because when it comes to the POV crowd, they can't do these right-click menus to control the flood ballast, to control their ballasts when they eventually do their mission. So we're gonna have to be able to figure out how to action group it. But nonetheless, those SRBs still proved not enough. So we are gonna switch over into the Moist engines, or excuse me, right now we're gonna switch over into the Sunk Work engines and try those out. But unfortunately, even the biggest ones, and 4 of them, were not enough to stop us yet again. So we are going to switch over to the other set. we're going to kind of putting in some liquids in there to start with, but that's not the correct way we need to do it, so that's not going to matter. But we are going to use these boat engines. I'm going to start off with the second to largest ones, or the third to largest ones, and as we see here, yet again, not enough to handle. So many are of the mindset of more boosters, but I am of the school of thought of bigger boosters. So we throw on the second largest boat engines we got. Hopefully we don't have to go to the largest one, because that will just be unseemly. And that one I didn't go anywhere because I forgot to put the ballast back on. So we're going to change it. Rather than that tiny little tank, I'm going to have this a little bigger one. It's a little easier to click on. I go back to the moist intake, and so we're going to set up the action groups that way. But I don't like it. Didn't work very well. Didn't enjoy it. So we go back to the sunk works intake valve, and that is what we need. So with this test flight, I'm going to show you how that works. It's right here that we kind of learned that if I shut down the flow, the intake flow to the actual tank itself, rather than focusing on the intake valve, I can much more easily control my descent and how much water, how much liquid goes into it. So as we see here, I have cut off all intake, and it is now descending. So once we get closer to the bottom, we'll be able to see its impact range. But as we test here, it doesn't take us very long to cancel out our descent and head back up. Now I know we haven't picked up the speed yet that we do when we hit to the bottom, but that is very encouraging to see that we have that much control, that much thrust. And I have a lot of the ability. It does take a second to load up, but I do have the ability of feathering in my descent. So with that said and done, we hire 2 scientists, because we are going to be, we're going to be launching this in our world as well, and collecting the station science and the underwater science that we can grab. POV is going to give us their submarine plans, and we're going to be able to launch that mission ourselves as well. So of course we're going to need to hire some scientists in order to work in the science lab, but that's pretty cool. We need all the people we can get. I'm going to make some last minute changes here, adjusting the radiators to be flat and on the side, and bring the landing legs down a little bit, just making some final touches. The Drello-matic is going to need to be put onto action groups as well, because like I mentioned, POV doesn't have the option of right clicking out on menus. So we are actually going to set up the whole fuel making process onto action groups there, so everything can be automated from the inside. So after testing, I built myself a launch capable vehicle, threw it all in a fairing. You'll get to see that here in a second, but I'm making some last minute changes by throwing on some more lights. Those lights are tracking, so they'll be able to follow a Kerbal if they're on the ocean floor. And I decided to put on some upwards facing lights, as well as some blinking ones, blinking red ones, in order to have better visibility when the Kerbals in the submarine are looking for it in the dark. They should be able to spot it a little more easily. So with that all said and done, I also am going to throw on probe core, because I think the final craft, the one that we end up sending to Eve, will be remote controlled and be boarded once we get there. But with all that, let's get this rocket out on the launch pad. It doesn't have very much to do. It just needs to go into the water. It doesn't need to go very far, but it does need to go deep. We need to make sure that it's deep enough that it can withstand the pressures of such a depth. So we are going suborbital. It's not really that great of a rocket. Doesn't have enough delta V to circularize. It doesn't even have enough delta V to get to space. This is really just a way to transport the sealab without having to build ourselves a boat. But nonetheless, this will do. We're going to just follow this launch up and over It's a beautiful day, a lot of clouds to be seen, nice early sunrise. And we're gonna follow the life of this side booster as it comes back down. And using the mod stage recovery, those parachutes will deploy and save us some money. So we're gonna jettison the fairing. Even though we are in low altitude, the atmosphere is going to be pretty thick. Not thick enough to build up heating effects, but we're gonna still test this heat shield, and that will also help us point ourselves retrograde, which is gonna be a good thing. This had gone through about 2 tests to make sure that it could indeed land, but it was still kind of a crapshoot on one of the 2 occasions. So we shall see. Takes a long time for the parachutes to finally open, and when they do, I can get rid of that heat shield and hopefully get it out of the way so it doesn't damage our craft. Oh, except it was right there. It took no time at all to hit the water. And with that, we have safely touched down our craft into the water. Now it's just a matter of getting it sunken. So the heat shield coming off to the side did have the capability of destroying us, so it was good to see that it didn't. In one of my tests, it smacked into us and broke one of our engines, so it was nice to see that that was not the case. I'm activating our communication dishes, however we don't have an active signal to the KC at the moment. So now it's just a matter of following it down, keeping an eye on our speed. You can see in the top right our vertical speed is negative 8 meters per second and climbing, or falling, whichever way you want to look at it. And the light is slowly leaving us as we go into darker and darker water. Throw on our engines a little bit to just brace ourselves, turn on our lights, lower our landing gear. We don't have any kind of mech jeb availability. We don't have the trajectories mod to tell us where we're gonna land or how close the seabed floor is. We have to just keep an eye and hope. It's about this time that I'm reminded of the underwater game that I played, Soma, during the month of October last year, and just how terrifying the ocean really is. As we're going through the murky depths, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun mission. I'm really looking forward to piloting the submarine. In case I hadn't made it clear, because I had to talk about so many different things, but the goal is the POV crowd are going to find this sealab. They're gonna locate it. They're gonna send out a submarine and then dock with it, put their own scientists aboard, and collect their own science. And so they're gonna need to pilot their way through this ocean just like we did, but with a little more finesse, and find this little beacon of light in the inky black depths. I'm so excited. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to make sure that this thing lands safely. Like I mentioned before, we don't really have gauges, so there's really no point in paying attention to our numbers all that much, except for to see our descent rate. No indicator that we're actually even descending at all anymore until we see the tops of the kelp provided by the parallax mod. But feather in our landing, bounce up a little bit, meaning that we were actually going a little faster than I had planned for, but nonetheless, keep ourselves upright, bring on the throttle ever so slightly, a little bit faster than I wanted to, so I bounced up yet again, but that gives us the ability of kind of wiggling our way out of that bit of kelp as much as we can, get a clear view of our craft. Fortunately, it's very dark, and there's not much else to see around us, but I'm glad that we at least had some kind of ground scatter to mark our approach. So yeah, so I would call that a successful landing. We had all 4 Kerbals alive and well. I think what we'll do with our mission, our KXP mission, is we may end up using that submarine that the POV crowd will show off in their next episode on Monday. We're going to use that to come and rescue our Kerbals here, because this is all 4 Kerbals. So this is the last that we got. Everyone else is out on mission or, to be remembered. But for now, let's go ahead and perform all of our science. We're going to put that into the mobile processing lab, but then we're also going to perform the science again and transmit. As you see in the top left, we have local control, and our dishes are powerful enough, obviously, to transmit because it's just here on Kerbin, but they have a range of 250 gigameters, so hopefully that will be enough to transmit from Eve, but we'll have to test that when we get there. We're going to go ahead and start the ore drilling and processing process. Start all of the ISRUs, and as well as the fuel cells. I think I did that earlier though. So that will provide us with just slightly less power than we need, I believe. I think we're still losing power, but that might just be because of all the lights that we have on here. And we only have the lights on because we are waiting for the Kerbals to arrive, and we want them to be able to see us nice and well. But once this lab is in process and doing its thing up there on Eve or wherever it's going to be, it should be power positive and be able to just work in perpetuity, excuse me. But that is where today's episode is going to come to a close. I am excited. Like I mentioned, in the next one, depending on how well the sub works in POVs, we're probably going to send it out ourselves and come rescue these guys. So I hope you're excited for that, and check us out on Monday to see the sub being built and tested. But anyways, that is where I'm going to leave today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward for more KXP. If you did, think about subscribing. Drop me a like, let me know your thoughts, and I will see y'all in the next one. Take care.